Hi, good morning, everyone. Fine. Let's start with how we would represent a Salesforce object record in the form of JSON. And see, this is very important. I mean, previous to this, whatever we have learned, that was a kind of introduction. I mean, how JSON looks like to be. First of all, what is a JSON format? What is the scope of JSON while we do any sort of integrations? Either we are transferring the data to third-party system, or maybe if we are receiving certain data from that external system. So what is the significance of JSON format? And how does the JSON looks like to be? What are the different forms of data types that we can use inside JSON? So everything whatever we have discussed so far was in kind of introduction about JSON. Now for us particularly, the most important thing would be how you would going to represent a Salesforce record, multiple Salesforce record, a single Salesforce record of a particular object into in the JSON format. This is going to be the most important thing. Why is it so? Because try to understand, it's a very clear image. Whatever sort of integrations we would be going to perform, all right, whatever sort of integrations we would going to be perform, it's absolutely is clear that what we are either going to do, either we would be, either we would be transferring certain data, either we would be transferring certain data to the external system, or else what we are going to do, we would be receiving certain records, certain data from the external system. So we are going to perform this inbound and outbound integrations. We would going to perform both of them. We would going to perform both of them. In inbound integration, where the tendency is to receive something, or outbound integration, where the tendency is to send something from Salesforce. But then there is a known fact to all of us. Either if I'm receiving something from Salesforce, or either if I'm receiving something inside Salesforce, there is a data that is coming from an external system. I would be receiving this inside Salesforce. After receiving that data, what we are going to do? After receiving that data, what we are going to do? We would obviously going to commit this record inside any object. Let's say we are having a lot of objects. Let's consider there is an object called as candidate. There's an object called as candidate. You would be receiving this data from an external system. There is an external system which is sending you a few records of candidates. Once you have all that integration, you set up all that integration, we would going to learn that step-by-step process, how this whole process goes, how we set up an integration, how we connect an external third-party system with Salesforce. What are the security protocols, the mandatory security protocols that needs to be get followed whenever you are integrating Salesforce with an external system. It's not like that easy job. It's not, it's not about coupling two hooks. You can hold one and you can just connect the second one. It's not simple as like that. Salesforce is highly secured in, Salesforce is highly secured. And when it comes about integration, Salesforce have a very standard process. There are certain standard protocols which is required to be followed every time whenever you are interfacing Salesforce with an external system. So we would be going to learn all of that. I'm just trying to make it simple, guys. I'm just trying to make it simple as far as possible so that you would understand this very clearly. All right, so let's consider we are receiving certain amount of data. This is that data. This circle represents a data, maybe one record, maybe multiple records, whatever it could be. It's just a data, and we have received that data inside Salesforce. So once that data is received, once we have received that data inside Salesforce, what we are going to do next? What is going to be the next step after this? Yes, this record obviously is going to be get stored inside an object. Inside an object. Let's say candidate object, account object, contact object. That depends on the kind of record, whatever you are receiving. But you would ultimately, after receiving that record, after accepting that record, after taking that record, you are going to store that inside an object. That was about inbound integration. Now let's talk about there is a data. I wanted to transfer that data. There's a data. Where that data is placed, it is a record of an object. It's an opportunity record. It's a campaign record. It's a hiring manager record. It's a record of a standard object or a custom object. And I wanted to transfer that data to a third party, external third party system. So that is something we used to call this as an outbound integration when you are transferring something to external system. That's an outbound integration. Generally, they would ask you this in interview. Listen, all of you. Generally, they would ask you in the interview what sort of integrations you have performed. What sort of integration? What type of integration have you worked? You have to answer in two ways for this. There are two possible answers. There are two possible answers to this question. If they would ask you what type of integration you have worked, there are two possible answers to this question. The first depends on direction. Direction. Whether you worked on a system where you have received something, or whether you have worked on a system where you transferred something from and to or from the external system. So you have to say that I have worked with both of them, inbound, and as well as outbound. So I have worked with both inbound and outbound integrations. That is all about direction. Because see, when you are receiving, the code looks like to be different. When you're transferring, code is obviously going to be different. There are two separate sort of coding mechanisms. There are two separate coding mechanisms for this one. It's not a standard generic code. You have to design two separate codes. One for inbound. It looks like to be different from outbound. So you would going to say that I have worked. I have worked with both inbound and outbound system. Then the second, if you're asking in terms of REST and SOAP, I have worked on REST API only. SOAP I have studied, but unfortunately I have not worked on SOAP because I didn't get the chance. Whenever in my organization with my project, whenever integration has been established, the integration is always set up with the use of REST API, R-E-S-T, representational state transfer, something like that, transfer protocol. That is what is the full form of REST API. We are going to see this, don't worry. Anyways, so guys, now, very important. So one thing what we just have studied out of this whole discussion was, it is always going to be an object. Either you would be receiving data, JSON data inside a Salesforce object, or else what you are going to do, you would be going to convert a record of JSON, convert a record of object into JSON, and then you would be going to transfer. Because see, ultimately, what is going to be happen? Either if you are receiving that data, or maybe let's say you are transferring a record, right? In both of the cases, it's always going to be a JSON data. When you are receiving something, that is going to be a JSON record. And what you have to do, you have to convert it from JSON to Salesforce object as object record, right? And let's say if you are transferring a record, one record of account, one record of opportunity, two records of contact, multiple records of whatever the object it is. So that record, that object record, you have to convert it into JSON. So that's the reason, I left it tomorrow, because I know how much effort I would going to require for this explanation. That's why I have not taken this, because the gravity of this particular thing, it's exceptional. All we have studied yesterday, that was just a small thing. This is going to be a very important topic for us, for every one of you to understand. That's why I have not taken this, because I don't want it to short this topic. I don't want it to cut the story in fast. I wanted to explain all this thing in elaborated way. So let's now understand. Let's now understand how you are going to convert an object record. It could be any object, understood? It could be any object, account, every standard, every custom. how you are going to convert an object record into JSON format. How you are going to convert an object record into JSON format. So this is that syntax. This is that syntax of representing. This is that syntax of representing the records of the object. Single record of the object. Single record. Let me try to explain you this. Every JSON always starts and ends with every JSON always starts and ends with a curly bracket, isn't it? Every JSON always starts and ends with a curly bracket. Now, if you have a record, let's say you are having one record of account, contact, any, that record would always be represented like this. That means value. But understand, JSON is a key value pair. We just have studied yesterday itself that every JSON format is always encapsulated like this. Every JSON record is always encapsulated like this. That means it always have two entities, like it always have two entities, key and values. Key and values. Key is always going to be a string. Key is always going to be a string. Value, it depends. It could be string, it could be number, it could be an array of string, array of number. It could also be an object. And when it's object, that is what we are learning right now. So JSON is always, syntactically, JSON is always represented like this. JSON is something we call as a pair of key and value. A pair of key and value. It is always encapsulated like this only. So how can I give value without key? Isn't it? It's not possible that you can only represent value without key. It's not possible. When I'm saying that if this is value, every single record of an object, is considered to be a value. It must have a key. It must have a key. So that's why, let's now finalize this. So it's always start with a key name. Key name, because keys, they are always going to be a string. Strings are always enclosed within double inverted comma. You have to write down something over here. Any given name is allowed. Let's say account record, customer record, student record, or something like position, candidate, whatever you want, whatever you feel looks to be appropriate, just give that name. But there must be a key. There must be a key. You cannot give value directly in JSON. JSON is a key value pair. And after that, the pattern what we have studied, the same. Once you have given this key, give a colon, that's a separator. But after the values, values are always going to be enclosed like this. Values are going to be enclosed like this. Again, open one opening and a closing bracket. Then give the value. Now again, you see there is a key and value. Ab ye kahan se aa gaya? Ye kahan se aa gaya? I'll tell you this. It's very simple to understand. Don't worry. Let's consider there's an account record. There's an account record. All right. There is an account record. Better I would type this all. There is an account record. Now this account record has name. Name equals to, let's say, Kasim. And then industry. The value of industry is like information technology. And let's say the ownership. So ownership is, let's say, private. And let's say the active status. Active status equals to yes. And let's say the rating. Rating might be warm. So this is an account record. Let's consider this is an account record. I wanted to represent this in the form of JSON. So how I'm going to do this? First of all, I would open and close a curly bracket. Then I'll give a key name, any key name, any key name. Any key name is allowed over here. Any key name is allowed. And then I would open like, I would open one again, Inside in the value section, I would open one brackets. And over here, see, understand, I wanted to introduce a terminology. Over here, when you see this is a value section, you know this. When you see inside in the value section, because this is key area, this is value area. So over inside value, if you would see curly brackets, if you would see curly bracket, for your simplicity of understanding, for your simplicity of understanding, you can call this as opening and closing of record, opening and closing of record. That's just a simplicity. For your simplicity of understanding, you can call. There is no standard terminology. ये मैं अपना बनाया हुआ बता रहा हूँ आपको. Opening and closing of a record. Because I know that this is value area. ये एक बार जब आपने की नेम लिख दिया, उसके बाद कोलन लगा दिया, तो अब आपको तो वैल्यूज लिखनी है. But inside in the value, when you see this opening and a closing curly bracket, what you can say? Opening and closing of a record, single record. Now we can write down name equals to Kasim, industry equals to banking, active status equals to VS, telephone number equals to this and all, and right, something like that. So this way we represent a single record. This way we represent a single record. What about multiple records? Yes, we are going to cover that as well. There are certain examples over here. Go with them. Go with them. For example, if there is a class, with all these, like, with all these integers, with all these variables, like product code is a variable, name is a variable, unit price, manufacturer is in stock. These all are variables. So how would you represent this data into JSON formats? It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. I'm just coming to that fact. Don't worry. So JSON always starts and ends with what? A curly bracket. Then you can give any name to key, any name to key. Class name is product info. So I find this more appropriate that the key name should be product info. Otherwise, I can give any name. I can give any name. I just try to make it similar. I just try to make it symmetric with the class name. Otherwise, you can give any name. There is no compulsion that you should give always this name. No. It's not like that. You can give any name, but it's always should be an appropriate, isn't it? The naming convention is something nobody is going to teach you. It's always something you have to realize this by your own. है ना? तो अपन नेमिंग कन्वेंशन से भी जाने जाते हैं कि अपन किस तरह के प्रोग्रामर है बॉस. आप कैसा नेम देते हो उसको, आप किस तरह का नाम देते हो उसको, उससे भी आप जाने जाते हो कि आपका कोडिंग स्टाइल क्या है ना? तो थोड़ी छोटी छोटी बातें हैं. दिस अ बिहेवियरल काइंड ऑफ थिंग. जैसे how do you behave in a society when you are among several others? How you behave yourself, how you represent yourself would show your etiquettes, would show your attitude. ये सब जनरल बातें हैं. बच्चों को अपन क्यों ऐसे तमीजदार बनाते हैं? बच्चों को बोलते हैं कि भाई आप किसी को मिलो, नमस्ते करो, सलाम करो, हाथ मिलाओ. Why we say this? Because we wanted them to become a good individual. That's why we taught them this whole thing. In the same way, nobody would going to say you कि अबे ऐसा नाम दे, वैसा नाम दे. No, it is something that you have to realize this by your own. Whenever you are giving a name to a module that you created, try to give as far as appropriate name to this, so that the name itself would indicate, yeah, this belongs to this entity. This is something used for that purpose. तो ध्यान रखें इन सब चीजों का. छोटी बातें हैं, but this shows how mature person you are in programming. So I have given a name, which is the name of the class. And then because it's having all these, it's having all these variables, after that colon, I have open and a close that represents a single record. So thereafter I have open and close that curly bracket, and then keys are represented. Your variable names, I have used them as key, and the values I have given. Now over here you can see this a number. Number can be given directly. Laptop is what? It's a string. Strings have to be enclosed within double inverted comma. Inside in Apex, the string is written in single inverted comma, whereas in the JSON format, it's always written inside double inverted comma, isn't it? True and false, they are Boolean. Boolean is also written directly, like your numbers. Boolean also is not being enclosed, is not being written within inverted commas, right? So this way, like you represent a single record. And now let's come to multiple records. So whenever there are multiple records, yesterday I told you one thing. Yesterday I have told you one thing. And then I make you realize that why I'm saying this. You would going to understand it later. When we were being talking about this opening and closing square bracket, that array wala symbol, I told one thing yesterday that whenever you wanted to represent multiple data of same form, whenever you wanted to represent multiple data of same type, same data type, same form, all of them are integers, all of them are strings, all of them are opportunity records, all of them are candidate records, all of them are position record. There are multiple records, there are 1,000 records, but all of them are account record. If I would ask you, if I would take a piece of record out of that, what is this record? This is an account record. I'll take another one. What is this record? That's also an account record. So this whole collection consists of thousands of records, but what? Account, opportunity. Now, this is like, there are multiple records. There are multiple records of a type called, there's a class called as product info. It's have multiple records. See, we have studied a concept called as ORM, object, relationship, and mapping. And according to this concept, according to the phenomenon of ORM, we have defined there is one known phenomenon that every object, standard or custom, every object, standard or custom is a class. Is a class. Programmatically, it's a class. Account is a class. Opportunity is a class. Campaign is a class. Hiring manager, position, candidate, whatever you have created, what was being created automatically, standardly. That every object itself is a class. This we have studied. So see, if I'm representing this as a product info, product info could also be an object. And then every field inside that object, let's say account is an object, it have fields like name, rating, ownership, annual revenue, industry, active, what all of them are. They are variables. They are variables. We define data types. What are different forms of data type? Primitive and as object. See, it's a very long journey what you have, and it's a very good thing. Like we are almost about to end the syllabus. You and me, we have traveled a long for to learn this whole thing. Gradually, step by step, topic by topic, small by big. But we have studied a lot many things, guys. पूरा एक साल आप और मैं साथ में रहे और हमने काफी सारी चीजें पढ़ी हैं. So every object itself is a class. Every class itself can be an object. It's vice versa. There are two sides of coin, isn't it? So वही बात मैं कहना चाहता हूँ कि अब मान के चलो there are multiple records, but the type is same. तो पहली चीज तो ये होगी कि when you wanted to represent multiple record, you have to enclose them within square bracket because square bracket represents array. What is an array? Collection of homogeneous elements, collection of similar elements. Every record inside in this follow the same pattern. That's why you have to enclose them, right? That's why you have to enclose them within the square bracket. उसके बाद वही है जो अभी सिखाया आपको, एक एक रिकॉर्ड. दिस इज वन रिकॉर्ड, है ना. आफ्टर रिप्रेजेंटिंग दैट फर्स्ट रिकॉर्ड कॉमा लगाइए, उसके बाद दूसरा रिकॉर्ड लिखिए, उसके बाद और एक होता तो यहाँ पे कॉमा लगाओ, तीसरा रिकॉर्ड लिखो. सो दिस इज द वे जेसन इज क्रिएटेड फॉर द रिकॉर्ड्स. नाउ लेट्स कम टू ये सारे एग्जाम्पल. ये देख लेना तुम, या मैं एक समझा देता हूँ इसमें से. लेट्स से देयर इज एन अकाउंट रिकॉर्ड, लीड रिकॉर्ड, कुछ भी समझ सकते हैं आप. एक अकाउंट रिकॉर्ड है, उसको हमने जेसन में कन्वर्ट करना है. तो जेसन ऑलवेज स्टार्ट्स एंड एंड्स विद व्हाट? कर्ली ब्रैकेट. देन आप की बनाओ, की का कुछ नाम दो. यू कैन गिव एनी नेम टू दिस. इस अकाउंट रिकॉर्ड दिया, उसके बाद कूलन, वो तो हमेशा देना ही पड़ता है. दैट रिप्रेजेंट्स कि यहाँ पे की खत्म हो गई और अब जो अगली चीज आप देखने जा रहे हैं वो वैल्यू है. अब क्योंकि एक सिंगल रिकॉर्ड था तो उसको हमने स्टार्ट एंड एंडिंग ऑफ रिकॉर्ड यानी कर्ली ब्रैकेट. उसके बाद में आपने पूरा रिप्रेजेंट किया, जैसे मैंने बताया नेम, रेटिंग, इंडस्ट्री, एनुअल रेवेन्यू, है ना. अब इसमें से जो स्ट्रिंग है उसको आपको डबल इन्वर्टेड कॉमा में देना पड़ेगा. हाँ, हर रिकॉर्ड के बाद एक ये कॉमा भी रहना जरूरी है. और जो जो नंबर है दैट यू कैन गिव इट डायरेक्टली. फोन का डेटा टाइप जो होता है वो, फोन का जो डेटा टाइप होता है वो स्ट्रिंग होता है, बिकॉज इसमें कैरेक्टर्स भी होते हैं ना, प्लस, डैश, इस तरह के. तो फोन जो होता है या फैक्स जो होता है इसका डेटा टाइप स्ट्रिंग होता है. स्ट्रिंग होने की वजह से वो डबल इन्वर्टेड कॉमा में लिखा गया है. ठीक है. सो दिस वे एंड एक्टिव इज नॉट बूलियन, इट्स ट्रू एंड फॉल्स नहीं है. एक्टिव जो है ना, एक्टिव की वैल्यू येस और नो है. ट्रू और फॉल्स होती तो मैं डायरेक्ट दे सकता था. एनीवेज, सो दिस इज लाइक हाउ यू रिप्रेजेंट अ सिंगल रिकॉर्ड। अब वही अगर मल्टीपल रिकॉर्ड्स होते हैं, जैसे यहाँ अपॉर्चुनिटी के 3 रिकॉर्ड है, तो कैसे करोगे आप? तो फिर बस वही है, स्टार्टिंग एंड ओपनिंग एंड क्लोजिंग कर्ली ब्रैकेट, गिव एनी नेम, की तो देना ही पड़ेगा, उसके बाद में कूलन, कूलन के बाद आप, बिकॉज मल्टीपल रिकॉर्ड्स हैं तो आपको उसको एनक्लोज करना पड़ेगा स्क्वायर ब्रैकेट में। एंड देन इंडिविजुअल रिकॉर्ड, एक एक रिकॉर्ड क्रिएट करिए, इंडिविजुअली एक एक रिकॉर्ड क्रिएट करिए, ठीक है, एक एक रिकॉर्ड क्रिएट करिए। एंड देन आफ्टर क्रिएटिंग अ सिंगल रिकॉर्ड, आपको यहाँ पर ये कॉमा देना पड़ेगा, उसके बाद में दूसरा रिकॉर्ड फिर से कॉमा, उसके बाद तीसरा रिकॉर्ड फिर से कॉमा, चौथा पांचवा जितने भी, उस तरह से, ठीक है, इस तरह से करना पड़ेगा। तो जैसे मैंने कल कुछ कहा था कि इसको एक बार टाइप कर लेंगे तो ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा। कल भी कुछ एग्जांपल्स हुए अपने जिसमें इंटीजर आई गेस और स्ट्रिंग वाला सिंपल था, उसी तरह से आज ये जितना भी दिख रहा है आपको स्क्रीन पे, इस नोट्स में जितना भी है, इसको आप टाइप कर लें, ठीक है, इसको आप टाइप कर लें, टाइप करें ये फॉर्मेट को, ये जरूरी है, ये जरूरी है, ताकि आपको जेसन जो है वो अच्छे से समझ में आ जाए, ठीक है, आपको जेसन जो है वो अच्छे से समझ में आ जाए। अब एक क्वेश्चन आता है हमारे दिमाग में, जैसे कि मान के चलो कि यहाँ पे 3 अपॉर्चुनिटी रिकॉर्ड है, इसको अगर हमने जेसन में कन्वर्ट करना है तो ठीक है, इस तरह से हमने लिख लिया, टाइप कर लिया, ठीक है, समझ में आ गया। रियल टाइम पे क्या हमको यही करना है? रियल टाइम पे क्या हमको फिर से यही करना है? भाई एक रिकॉर्ड है तो समझ में आता है, 5 रिकॉर्ड है, 10 रिकॉर्ड है, वो भी ठीक है। अगर 500 रिकॉर्ड है, 5000 रिकॉर्ड है, 1 मिलियन रिकॉर्ड है, तो कैसे करेंगे इसको जेसन में कन्वर्ट, कैसे करेंगे? तो क्या हमारे पास एपेक्स में कुछ ऐसा अवेलेबल है जो ऑटोमेटिकली जेसन कन्वर्ट करके देता है? जैसे आपके पास में सेल्सफोर्स ऑब्जेक्ट है, जैसे अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑब्जेक्ट है, उसमें उसमें 1000 डेटा है, 1000 रिकॉर्ड्स ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी है, और किसी वजह से यू वांटेड टू ट्रांसफर दिस टू ए सिस्टम, एक्सटर्नल सिस्टम। एक इंटीग्रेशन रिक्वायर्ड है, जिस इंटीग्रेशन के तहत आपको उसे भेजना है, आपको उसे भेजना है। तो फिर उसको हम जेसन में कैसे कन्वर्ट करेंगे? क्या उसे मैन्युअली करना पड़ेगा? क्या हमें ऐसी कोई क्लास लिखनी पड़ेगी? आंसर है क्लास तो लिखनी है ऑफ कोर्स, लेकिन आंसर है यस, हमारे पास में एपेक्स में एक रेडीमेड क्लास अवेलेबल होती है जिसका नाम है जेसन जनरेटर क्लास। जेसन जनरेटर, और जेसन जनरेटर क्लास एक्चुअली, देखो, एपेक्स प्रोग्रामिंग जो है ना, काफी हद तक रेडीमेड प्रोग्रामिंग है। जावा में ऐसा नहीं होता था। मतलब जब मैंने जावा किया था, बहुत साल पहले की बात है यार, सी टैक किया था जब, तो लॉजिक जैसे अभी आपको समझाया, ऐसा ही कुछ है, समझ लो कि लॉजिक है, नाउ इम्प्लीमेंट दिस वायर कोडिंग। तो आपको हर चीज के लिए कोड करना, अभी भी हमने लॉजिक सीखा, अभी हैव अंडरस्टूड लाइक कि जेसन क्या होता है, कैसे दिखता है, जेसन में एक रिकॉर्ड कैसे रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं। पहले तो ये देखा कि भाई जेसन में डेटा टाइप क्या होता है, तो पता चला 2 यूजुअल फॉर्म ऑफ डेटा होता है, एक तो नंबर होता है या फिर स्ट्रिंग होता है, एक्चुअली बेसिक 2 ही फॉर्म है। अब हम अरेज पे भी आते हैं, तो अरे क्या हो सकता है, कलेक्शन ऑफ नंबर या कलेक्शन ऑफ स्ट्रिंग हो सकता है, यही हो सकता है। अल्टीमेटली है तो नंबर, डेटा टाइप जो होते हैं ना वैल्यूज के, वो देखा जाए तो 2 ही होते हैं, या तो वो नंबर रहेगा, और या फिर वो अपार्ट फ्रॉम नंबर नहीं तो फिर वो चाहे जो भी है वो स्ट्रिंग रहेगा। हाँ, बुलियन और बुलियन भी रह सकता है, ट्रू और फॉल्स, सॉरी। तो फिर हमने उसके बाद जैसे धीरे धीरे सारी चीजें पढ़ी, अब ये लॉजिक सीख लिया आपने, फिर आपने देखा कि ऑब्जेक्ट लेवल पे एक रिकॉर्ड को कैसे रिप्रेजेंट करना, मल्टीपल रिकॉर्ड्स को कैसे रिप्रेजेंट करना। अगर ये जावा होता ना तो आपको इसके लिए कोड करना होता, ये क्लास आपको खुद को बनानी पड़ती थी, एक कस्टम क्लास जो सारी पार्सिंग करे और उसके बाद में ये सारा करे। इट वॉज वेरी हेक्टिक, यू वुड रियलाइज, आप सोच रहे हो कि कितना सिंपल हो सकता है, ऐसा नहीं है ये। एक एक कॉमा आइडेंटिफाई करना, कूलेंस को आइडेंटिफाई करना, उसके बाद में सब लगाना, दिस इज अ वेरी टिपिकल कोड, और इसमें गलती से भी, जरा सी गलती की भी गुंजाइश नहीं होती है इसमें। बट थैंक गॉड, फॉर्चुनेटली वी आर नॉट लर्निंग जावा, we are learning apex programming. Apex, while what you are coding is a top level coding, high level coding. Underneath to that, below to that, there is a lot many things that is already created for you, and they are residing inside metadata repository. So we are very fortunate to learn Apex. आप आईटी में आ रहे हैं और अपने करियर की शुरुआत आप सेल्सफोर्स से कर रहे हो, ये बहुत अच्छी बात है। इट्स अ वेरी गुड टेक्नोलॉजी विथ वेरी वेरी मिनिमम एफर्ट्स, you are going to slip inside into this industry very smoothly, very lubricatedly. तो बेसिकली कैसा है, एक क्लास ऑलरेडी मौजूद है इन सब चीजों को कैरी आउट करने के लिए. देयर इज अ क्लास जेसन जनरेटर, वी विल गोइंग टू स्टडी दिस. I mean, not today, but in the coming session, tomorrow morning, we would going to learn. So we are very fortunate to see that there is a class which is going to convert your object data into JSON. And later on, there is a class which would convert, for serialization and deserialization, for both of them, for converting S object into JSON, serialization. For converting JSON into S object, deserialization. There is again a class, JSON generator and JSON parser. These are the two standard classes we would be learning. We would be learning the programs on them. And then we would going to convert that data of JSON into an S object. And then S object into JSON. So for both of them, for serialization and deserialization, we would going to see, we'll have a standard classes for this. We just have to understand what are the different methods of these classes and how I can code them, how I can use them inside a program for converting an S object record, like this record into JSON format. This already in the JSON, but let's say there's a 3 opportunity record, 300 opportunity record, multiple records, S object record. How we are going to convert that into JSON? So by this class, there's a standard class for this JSON generator. We are going to start this by tomorrow. And probably I could draw a program as well. Maybe. Let's see. Yeah. There are a lot of methods, but I'm going to quickly explain them and we would going to use them inside the program. That would be a good thing. That's all for today. If you have any question, please go ahead and ask. Otherwise, I have time. I wanted to discuss on few of the things. If you guys wanted to ask something, please go ahead. Otherwise, I'm stopping the recording because I wanted to had a few discussions with you guys. Yes, any questions around this or anything else? Any questions? Any questions? Nothing? You guys are simply wonderful. You don't ask me anything. You make my day very simple. Thank you so much. Well, let me stop the recording first of all. कहाँ चला जाता है ये बटन? हाँ